It begins in silence, a silence so complete it wraps around the planet like a burial shroud. Far above the curve of Earth, the stars remain fixed, cold and indifferent. Cities shimmer in their artificial twilight, unaware that the last true daylight has already passed. Somewhere in the Pacific, waves strike the shoreline with rhythmic grace. Children sleep, lovers talk in whispers. The world continues, for now. But 8 minutes ago, the sun, our star, our clock, our source, ceased to shine. There was no explosion, no warning flare, just a sudden, unexplainable cessation. A nuclear heart, 109 times the width of Earth, extinguished in an instant. Its photons are still in transit, racing across the vacuum of space, unaware that their origin no longer burns. In this cosmic delay lies a haunting truth. Humanity will live for 8 minutes in a dead star's afterglow. And then, everything changes. The sun is not merely a light in our sky. It is the architect of seasons, the keeper of atomic time, the initiator of photosynthesis and evolution. Its gravity binds the planets. Its light sculpts life. Remove it, and the system collapses. Temperatures plummet. Magnetic fields warp. Global communication unravels. Plants wither. Species scatter. Civilization teeters. But the physical consequences are only the beginning. For in the absence of light, something else stirs. Something far stranger than cold and far older than life. A presence, once hidden in solar glare, now begins to take shape. And the question becomes not just what happens without the sun, but what awakens in its place. High above the Earth, in the eternal hush of low orbit, the solar and heliospheric observatory drifts silently, its metal skin glinting in the last reflected light. Inside its digital core, data streams hum in quiet constancy until they don't. It's 3:28 a.m. UTC. At NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Maryland, technician Adrienne Kwan leans over a console, frowning at a wall of incoming telemetry. The sun's extreme ultraviolet readings have gone flatline. No flares, no solar wind, no measurable radiation, just nothing. She reboots the sensor feed, still nothing. Her voice breaks the silence of the control room. Has Soho gone dark? But the systems are fine. Everything checks out. Every telescope aimed at the sun confirms the same impossible truth. The sun is still there, still a black disk against the stars. But it has gone silent. It is no software error, no calibration glitch. Just a moment later, an alert flashes across the consoles at the ESA Operations Center in Darmstadt. Then again, at the University of Tokyo's Hinode solar mission. The Parker Solar Probe, 93 million miles deep in the sun's breath, stops transmitting particle data altogether. The sun has stopped. And yet, back on Earth, nothing seems amiss. Children ride bicycles beneath a bright blue sky. A bakery in Paris opens its shutters. Stock traders sip coffee in lower Manhattan. Light still bathes the world. Warmth still radiates from sidewalks and windshields. Because photons take time. The energy we bask in was born 8 minutes ago, carved from thermonuclear reactions in a core 15 million degrees hot. It takes a full 8 minutes and 20 seconds for light to cross the gulf between sun and Earth. Until that threshold is breached, we live in a fading illusion. The first calls between solar observatories and deep space monitoring stations are hushed, uncertain. But urgency creeps in like rising static. A worldwide web of astrophysicists, engineers, and solar physicists begins to wake up, first confused, then shaken. Neutrino detectors buried deep in the Earth's crust, Sudbury in Canada, Super Kamiokande in Japan, show a sudden drop in solar neutrino flux, a signature that normally arrives even before light. Even those have stopped. What's more disturbing, there was no precursor, no coronal mass ejection, no flicker. The sun didn't die. It vanished from the inside out. A professor at MIT whispers the words no one wants to say. There is no known mechanism for this. Stars are not light bulbs. They don't shut off. They collapse, explode, or fade over eons. This question mark, this is something else. Still, Earth spins. Life ticks on. Millions remain utterly unaware that their entire reality has already ended. They're simply waiting for that end to arrive. The 8-minute illusion becomes one of the strangest phenomena in the history of human observation. A species watching its own life source disappear in real time from the past. And now, as the countdown ends, the first shadows begin to shift. Something is no longer right with the light. It begins like a trick of the eye. Shadows lengthen in ways they shouldn't. The light loses its golden warmth, becoming pallid, ghost-like. Birds grow silent. Skyscrapers glint cold steel. The moon, still visible in the daylight sky, appears strangely unlit, as if someone drained it of reflection. Then, in a moment as mundane as it is monumental, it happens. The light dies. Not a fade, not a dimming, but a severing. Abrupt. Absolute. Across every hemisphere, daylight ceases. The skies, no matter the time zone, plunge into a premature dusk. The sun, once a roaring sphere of fire, becomes a black disk, visibly present yet completely inert. A hole punched through the fabric of the sky, and with that, the illusion shatters. Global reaction is instantaneous. News anchors go silent mid-sentence. Pilots radio in confused. Military installations issue DEFCON alerts. Streetlights flicker on in panic. Entire cities fall under an unfamiliar canopy of darkness. In observatories, physicists stand motionless before screens. For a field governed by equations and probabilities, this is something no theory allows. Stellar fusion is not optional. The sun, like all stars, is powered by the relentless fusion of hydrogen into helium, an atomic crucible that has burned steadily for 4.6 billion years. Its life cycle is charted in precise stages: birth in nebulae, a main sequence glow, then expansion, collapse, death. But nothing, in the standard model of stellar evolution, predicts this. The sun has not exploded. It has not gone nova. There are no neutrino bursts, no shock waves, no heat. It still holds its gravitational mass, still anchors the solar system. But its thermonuclear engine is gone, as if the reaction was never there to begin with. Leading astrophysicists converge on the data. Supercomputers run teraflop-scale simulations looking for an answer. And one word keeps rising from the ashes of disbelief: anomaly. Whatever this is, it didn't happen to the sun. It happened beneath the known laws of nature. Some theorize a localized quantum event, something that didn't just extinguish fusion, but rewrote the constants that allowed it. The implications ripple beyond astrophysics. Without solar radiation, Earth's magnetosphere begins to destabilize. Normally powered by the solar wind, charged particles that shape and shield our electromagnetic envelope, it now hangs limp, vulnerable. The Van Allen belts begin to dissipate. Satellites start to fail. GPS networks falter. Planes divert mid-flight. Whispers emerge. Could this be a false vacuum decay? A catastrophic transition from one quantum state of the universe to a lower energy one, erasing physical laws in its wake. a scenario predicted by some interpretations of quantum field theory, but only as a terrifying thought experiment, theoretical, remote. And yet, here we are. The scientific community, trained to doubt hyperbole, begins asking unthinkable questions. Has the sun collapsed into a black hole with no accretion burst? Was it consumed from the inside by a dimension we cannot observe? Or, worse, was it turned off? Because buried beneath the panic and data is a realization far more unsettling than extinction. This wasn't entropy. It was precision. Something made a choice, and the sun may not have been the first. The sky is no longer blue. What remains overhead is a bruised gradient, ashen violet, deepening to obsidian. Without the sun's scatter of light through Earth's atmosphere, the day dies instantly. There is no dusk, no golden hour, no sunset bleeding across clouds, just a sudden surgical removal of brightness. The stars, usually veiled behind daylight, emerge in full clarity, even at noon. They stare down like cold eyes from a forgotten time. And on Earth, the unraveling begins. In New York City, digital billboards flicker between product ads and breaking news. Global sun failure scrolls in garish red. In Nairobi, drivers stop in the middle of highways. In Shanghai, tens of thousands stand on rooftops, staring at the unlit shape of the sun like moths drawn to a cold flame. But beneath the emotional panic, something subtler begins to break. Time itself. Atomic clocks, devices that govern GPS, financial systems, and military targeting, begin to drift. These clocks rely on solar calibration. Without a steady stream of solar radiation, even the best instruments begin to lose their grip on absolute time. Biological rhythms spiral next. The circadian clock, encoded in the DNA of every living creature, is thrown into chaos. Melatonin surges at the wrong hours. Animals grow disoriented. Crops halt their growth. Even bacteria in the ocean's surface layers stop reproducing in sync with the planet's spin. It is not just darkness the Earth is experiencing. It is temporal displacement. Temperatures begin to drop, subtly at first, then sharply. 1 degree Celsius per hour across the continents. Oceans, holding heat longer, begin to cool from the surface inward. Polar regions descend rapidly into deep freeze. The Earth's surface loses its solar insulation. Cities in Canada and northern Russia report temperature plunges of -20 degrees Celsius by nightfall. Power grids strain to supply heat, pulling from fossil fuel reserves, nuclear stations, hydroelectric plants. But demand is exponential, and worse still, photosynthesis stops. All plant life, trees, crops, algae, plankton, enters stasis. Without solar photons to split water molecules and synthesize sugar, the oxygen engine of Earth stalls. Atmospheric oxygen won't vanish overnight, but its replacement pipeline has shut down. The base of the global food chain begins to rot. Meanwhile, Earth's thousands of orbiting satellites, normally buffered by solar radiation, experience a strange stillness. Instruments designed to read solar activity now record static. Solar panels go cold. Communication links begin to falter. The International Space Station, still circling the Earth in darkness, becomes a silent outpost, its crew staring through reinforced windows at the blackened sun, suspended like a hole in reality. And something else begins to emerge. The absence of sunlight reveals a shadow behind the sun. Not a silhouette, but a distortion. An absence of stars that stretches wider than the sun's own disk. As if something invisible, something vast, is cloaking it from behind. High-energy telescopes pick up nothing. Not in X-rays, not in gamma. The void emits no measurable radiation, yet subtly bends the background starlight. Gravitational lensing, but in a configuration that defies classical geometry. It behaves like a lens, but not of light, of information. In laboratories beneath the Swiss Alps and inside Japan's Kamioka mine, physicists re-examine old neutrino data. Hours before the light failed, solar neutrino counts dipped erratically. Not a slow fade, but an encoded pulse, like the dying heartbeat of a machine winding down. Was it a signal? Astrobiologists, desperate for pattern, begin mapping those pulses. They notice something uncanny. The intervals match prime numbers. Not perfectly, but close enough to raise unsettling questions. Is it coincidence? A final emission from a star unraveling itself? Or the fingerprint of a higher mechanism? The deeper the search, the stranger it becomes. Amid the escalating global crisis, one fact grows in magnitude. The sun has not gone supernova. It has not collapsed into a singularity. Its mass remains gravitationally intact, which means Earth is still in orbit. We are bound gravitationally to a dead thing that might not be dead at all. And with each passing hour, new structures emerge, patterns only visible in the absence of solar glare, faint radio signals, background distortions, and something faintly rhythmic emanating from the direction of the blackened sun. A pulse, not electromagnetic, not gravitational, but something else entirely, something we do not yet have words for. And behind it, the growing suspicion. This was not the death of a star. It was the removal of one. 7 days without the sun. The Earth has become a planet adrift, an ancient mariner floating through space without a lighthouse. The skies are perpetually night. No sunrise, no twilight. Just the unwavering presence of stars overhead, like an audience watching a stage where the actors have forgotten their lines. The sun remains in place. It has not moved. It still exerts gravity, but it no longer shines. And the darkness is not static. It grows colder, stranger, more complex with every passing hour. By the second day, average global temperatures have dropped below minus 30 degrees Celsius, minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit. By day 4, they approach minus 50 degrees Celsius. Entire continents grind to a halt beneath sheets of ice and blackouts. Lakes freeze solid. Rivers become brittle veins of ancient water. Snow falls in places that have never known it. Saudi Arabia, the Sahara, the equator. Fires become the last human light source. Neighborhoods cluster around burn barrels and diesel generators. Governments declare martial law. Satellites fall silent one by one as their solar arrays fail. The International Space Station is evacuated, left spinning alone in the dark. Oceans begin freezing from the top down, but deep below the surface, a different kind of heat remains, geothermal energy, born of Earth's molten core. Subterranean facilities become sanctuaries. Iceland reactivates its deep drilling plants. Russian and Canadian boreholes turn into lifeboats. Only a fraction of the population can be sustained this way. The rest begin migrating south, toward the equator, toward warmth, toward hope. But the equator is only a delay. The cold is absolute, relentless, unstoppable. Telescopes now see clearly what the glare of the sun once hid. Behind the void where the sun once radiated, something is taking shape, not an object, but a geometry. Light from distant stars bends unnaturally around the dead disk of the sun, but not in a way consistent with known lensing. The gravitational field is not spherical, but patterned, layered, like folds in a fabric we thought was flat. It's as if something is using the sun's former position as an anchor to twist space-time or pierce it. The distortion moves ever so slightly, not in space, but in phase. Even more unnerving, deep space observatories begin to detect synchronized fluctuations in quantum vacuum readings, variations in the density of virtual particles. The zero-point energy field, once considered uniform and unchanging, is now behaving like a message pad pressed upon by an invisible hand. What force could tamper with space-time at this level? And more disturbingly, why now? Across the world, old stories resurface. The Norse told of a wolf swallowing the sun before Ragnarok. The Aztecs spoke of 5 suns, each era destroyed by celestial collapse. In Hindu cosmology, the demon Rahu devours the sun during eclipses, an omen of transition. At first, these myths seemed poetic. Now, they feel like memories. Did ancient civilizations remember something our science has forgotten? Is this the return of a recurring cycle? Or are we simply recognizing patterns where there are none, facing an unknown too massive for human language? By day 7, the anomaly intensifies. New radio telescopes pick up an ultra-low frequency oscillation, a deep mechanical thrum, not noise, but rhythm. It echoes faintly across the entire electromagnetic spectrum, though it originates from no known physical source. Not a sound, not a wave, a field effect. It alters instruments, disrupts atomic stability. On the quantum level, certain constants begin to jitter. Planck's constant, the fine structure constant, wobbling within microscopic tolerances, enough to cause lab experiments to subtly fail. Physicists realize, horrified, that this may be the start of a new physics, one we did not ask for and are not prepared to understand. And so the escalation completes its arc. This is no longer about light, or temperature, or survival. The death of the sun was not a conclusion. It was an invitation to a reality not yet ours. In the vacuum of truth, theories rush to fill the silence. By the end of the second week, Earth is a whispering ruin, a planet shrouded in a long frozen night. The biosphere decays. Civilizations fracture into subterranean clusters. Above ground, the sun's blackened corpse looms silently, still tugging Earth in orbit, a gravitational ghost. And so, beneath ice and shadow, the questions burn brighter than any flame. What extinguished the sun, and how? Traditional stellar physics offers nothing. Stars like the sun live for billions of years. They do not turn off mid-life. There was no nova, no collapse, no warning. The immediate suspect, gravitational collapse into a black hole, is dismissed quickly. A black hole of solar mass would warp the solar system in measurable ways. It would unleash X-rays, particle jets, tidal chaos. But Earth's orbit remains unchanged. No radiation spike, no relativistic lensing consistent with a singularity. The sun is there, yet not. So physicists reach deeper, toward the edge of what science allows. The first and most haunting is one proposed decades ago by Nobel laureate Frank Wilczek and others: false vacuum decay. In quantum field theory, our universe may exist in a false vacuum, a metastable state that only appears stable. Somewhere else, a lower energy true vacuum may exist, governed by different physical constants. If triggered, this bubble of true vacuum could expand at light speed, rewriting reality as it goes. If the sun's nuclear fusion depended on constants, like the Higgs field or fine structure constant, that were subtly altered by such a shift, its core reactions would halt instantly. And if that's what occurred, it means Earth, too, is already inside the expanding bubble, just not yet aware of how deeply everything has changed. The terrifying truth of this theory is its finality. There is no warning, no escape, no defense, and the sun may be only the first symptom. Another theory, whispered in less cautious circles, is that the sun was intentionally modified. The structure now masking it, black, absorptive, gravimetrically intact, is not natural. It behaves like a cloaking mechanism, a stellar scale veil. Dr. Avi Loeb, known for his openness to extraterrestrial megastructures, once posited that civilizations could manipulate starlight for energy harvesting. But this is not a Dyson sphere. It is not capturing light. It is erasing it. A possible explanation: shadow engineering, a form of cosmic scale camouflage or containment. If an ancient intelligence wanted to hide a star from external detection, sever its radiation from space, and seal it behind an event-proof shroud, this is what it would look like. But why now? Was our star marked, or worse, interfered with? And if it was silenced, not by entropy but by intent, then that implies a disturbing corollary. Someone is watching, and they have been for a very long time. A final fringe theory, born from the patterns in neutrino pulses and quantum field disturbances, suggests the sun has not died, but shifted phase. Just as particles can exist in multiple quantum states, some propose that the sun has transitioned, not in location, but in dimensional resonance, like a note fading from one key to another. If this were true, the sun still exists, just no longer within our perceptual layer of reality. Some physicists liken it to being tuned out, as if the solar system were a radio and the station was suddenly changed. This could explain the strange pulses, the information-like neutrino patterns, and the subtle warping of constants. But it leads to an even more unthinkable question. What else can shift phase, and are we next? Ancient cosmologies may have tried to describe what we're seeing. The Hopi spoke of worlds ending in shadow. In Egyptian lore, Ra's bark disappears each night into the underworld, only to fight chaos and rise again. Mayan calendars counted suns and eras, suggesting cycles of solar death and rebirth. Were these metaphors or remnants of observation? Dr. Serafine Maldonado, a comparative mythologist turned physicist, writes in her bunker journal, "Maybe they didn't forget. Maybe they remembered what came last time. What is now clear, we are not witnessing a natural event. This is not the end stage of a dying star. It is the unraveling of a cosmic contract, a betrayal of the rules. And so Earth waits, frozen beneath a dark star, with only one certainty. Whatever did this knew exactly what it was doing. Beneath kilometers of ice and soil, humanity survives in whispers. In geothermal bunkers, hydroponic caves, and pressurized mine shafts, what remains of the world's scientists, engineers, and storytellers continue their vigil. While the surface lies abandoned, crusted in frost and silence below ground, the human instinct to search, to know, remains undimmed. Because even as the light has vanished, the questions have not. Originally intended as a waypoint mission to the moon's south pole, Artemis 4 was rerouted just hours after the sun went dark. What began as a lunar habitat mission became something else entirely, a desperate expedition toward the blackened heart of the solar system. Launched from Earth's last remaining thermal launch facility in Guyana, the Artemis crew now drifts through space aboard the Ignis 1, its engines powered by experimental nuclear propulsion. and its mission now as much myth as science. Their objective: approach the dead star and see what remains. As Ignis 1 nears the boundary of 0.5 astronomical units, its sensors begin to fail, not from heat, but from absence. Data packets vanish mid-transmission. Cameras return only static and strange, lens-like flares where the sun should be. Gravity remains, but orientation falters, as though space itself bends inward. Yet just outside the anomaly's edge, the crew detects something no one expected. Structure, not rings, not debris, but pattern. Smooth geometric heat shadows, not hot in the traditional sense, topologically hot. Curved in a way that suggests containment or control. Back on Earth, deep within what was once the Gran Sasso laboratory in Italy, a surviving neutrino team continues parsing data from before the collapse. The pulses that once seemed random now show increasing coherence. A breakthrough. The signal contains entropy reductions, a trait impossible in natural systems. It implies not just information, but intent. Across the Atlantic, at the repurposed Deep Space Network Station in California, engineers retrofit old radio telescopes into quantum interferometers. These instruments are tuned not to receive traditional electromagnetic waves, but to measure quantum decoherence fields, zones where the usual boundaries between observer and observed blur. And near the equator, in a superheated cave complex in Ecuador, a working AI co-researcher called VEIL continues to evolve. Trained on every astrophysics paper, mythological archive, and quantum dataset known to man, it now begins generating possible reconstructions of the sun's disappearance. Every simulation fails, except one. A model in which the sun is still emitting light, but we have been cut off from receiving it, as if an informational boundary, an event horizon, has passed between us and the source. There are whispers of a new mission, Project Ether, an interstellar seed probe carrying our genome, our art, and our unanswered questions, launched toward Proxima Centauri. A last message in a bottle, hurled into the dark. But those are dreams whispered in cold tunnels. For now, the only certainty is this: the exploration continues, not just outward, toward the sun's remains, but inward, into the laws we thought we understood, into the memories hidden in myth, into the patterns that pulse from that vast and silent shape that once was our star. Because if this is not death, then it is transition, and someone or something is still watching. The stars still shine. They burn from across the cosmos, cold, distant, indifferent. But without the sun, they feel like memories of light rather than beacons of it. The familiar warmth of dawn has vanished. No rooster calls, no blooming petals, no golden hour. Only a horizonless void where time drifts like smoke. And yet, we endure. Humanity, fragile and tenacious, huddles in the underworld it never meant to build. Cities carved into stone, lit by the glow of geothermal veins and flickering monitors. Above, the planet spins silently through a solar grave, tethered to the dark geometry of a star that no longer burns. But perhaps it was never just a star. Perhaps the sun was something more, a gate, a beacon, a veil. Perhaps its light was not merely energy, but a signal, a stabilizer, a message written across space-time that said, "You are not alone, and you are not yet ready." And now, that message has stopped. What happens to a world when its most ancient certainty vanishes overnight? When its myths become mirrors? When its physics become relics? We may never understand what we've witnessed. We may only remember. Not the moment the sun went dark, but the silence that followed, and the sense, deep, primal, unshakable, that something else has taken its place, something watching, something vast. And in this infinite night, as Earth sails forward into unknowable dark, a final question flickers behind every breath. Was the light meant to end, or merely withheld?